Today, we're continuing this castle leg sleeve. So you can see on the back, we kind of made a V. Same thing on the front, we made a V with our existing pieces. One thing that's really tricky about doing buildings on limbs is the limbs are cylinders, but also not perfect cylinders. So you come over here, you can kind of see the ankle obviously gets wider into the calf. So that's gonna warp our images. So like every time we lay a stencil, it's like we can lay this part, then we gotta cut it and lay this part and this part, because everything is going out, you know? If you try to lay a flat stencil, it will bend everything and just look terrible. So you do the best you can. A lot of times I'll draw like lines and try to stay with those lines, almost like a graph. Today we're gonna be working in this area, the back of the knee. Fortunately, the area is pretty flat compared to some of the other areas we work on with the leg. So as you can see on the front of the leg, we have the knee, obviously. So we still have our V, but I'm going to bring an image to close that gap, but stay under the knee. So my image for that will probably be somewhat circular at the top. I'm thinking we'll end up doing some ornamental around the knee itself so that we don't have to be putting a lot of detail on the actual knee. But on the back of the knee, we have a little bit more freedom. So whereas on the front, I'm not going to cross over the knee and break that border, on the back I am. And what I mean by that is today's image will extend on to the back of the thigh. So on the knee, we're gonna keep the image low. On the back of the knee, we're gonna run it high and kind of cross over that border. We got a really nice heel on our previous tattoo. So we kind of built like a little city on the bottom. You know, a lot of houses. As we move up the leg, we're gonna kind of tell a story. A lot of times in cities, on the bottom is kind of like where the peasants live, like Fritz. And then the higher up you get, usually the more wealth. You know, you see like the big castle. They do this a lot in movies, you know. So today we're gonna be working on, you know, a higher up building. We're gonna be doing kind of this crazy cathedral, dark castle-esque thing, and then that will place the city below it. So I think we'll be producing a cool effect with that. Mark the middle. It's kind of like I talked about, making a graph, and you have to be careful because sometimes the center of the thigh doesn't really align with the center of the calf. Sometimes the thigh will be like this and the calf will be like that, depending. Thankfully, Kyle has pretty straight legs. You know, if people like are a little like bow-legged or whatever. So we're just kind of finding the center. Because like technically what happens is this comes down and curves into the Achilles. But if you look at like the straight, that doesn't line up with that. So you're gonna have to like compensate a little with this stuff, especially with, I mean, doing buildings, you know, working with these straight lines is can become tough. Like if you printed out a straight graph and put it on someone, it would look all kinds of like warped. So we're just finding our center points right now. But then also, I talked about before, breaking in sections and finding like our side center points, because things are gonna start tapering in as we get closer to that. Center points on symmetrical images are pretty easy to find, right? All I'm gonna worry about right now is trying to line up the center line. I know we have other lines, we're just gonna start with this and we're gonna see how it goes. I chopped the sides off because I just know that we're gonna have to do more than one section with this. I'm hoping I can get this big section without it warping. We'll see. I'm gonna be very gentle and slow with my stencil. We have so many things going on here, and indents in the back of the knee. I'm gonna make sure we hit those. Not looking too bad. I gotta hit that one tower a little bit, but that's not bad. The fire looks cool. We weren't sure about the fire, but I wasn't sure if he would like the fire. Turns out he did. I love the fire, I think it's cool. It's a nice element. You know, we have like some smoke in here. And these little like light elements really are gonna help break up all the buildings. You know, my plan was definitely to show off different styles of buildings from different perspectives. You know, you can see there's a lot of like 3D side profile perspectives, 3/4. This one is like dead on, right? It's forward facing. But I think that's gonna make the piece really dynamic. But adding like little clouds or fire really helps with that. I might even leave these side things off because originally like they were gonna go here or here. Might just save them until we work on the front, because like I said, on the front, you know, I want to have obviously the space filled up, but I wanted to come under the knee, be form-fitting. And I'm thinking I'm gonna end up doing some kind of like structure, almost like a window or some kind of framing here. So there's like just enough room for that. When I'm working on a sleeve like this, like cool, I'm starting on this side, I know I'm gonna have to do the front. I am really trying to make sure it wraps to about the center, but not too much where it doesn't leave me enough room. You know, like on the Foo Dog piece we just did, that was a big concern because we were doing the back of the arm. I wanted to make sure I left enough in the front. So this is actually looking good the way it is. I don't think I'm gonna mess with it too much. When you're laying these like in the ditch, you know, in the back of the leg, I almost have them stand for a couple minutes just to really let this stencil dry, because as soon as they bend it, it's gonna mess it up if it's not dry. I'm gonna draw on some final touches. Cool, that little wall works. You know, pro tip, cut up your stencil and reuse different spots. As you can see, I built an entire wall here by myself, but really I just stole that piece up there and I put it there, but just don't tell anyone. We're working with a standard 3, a tight 7, standard 9. The tight 7, which is kind of like a 5, will be the detailed lines. The 9 will be the border lines. The 3 will be the shading and the fine details. Like sometimes I'll make some horizontal lines, you know, to show building texture. That'll be done with the 3. Foundation is gonna be, you know, the 7 and the 9. And then I have a 7 mag to build the contrast on top of the texture. We're rocking that tight 7. We're gonna get into it. Started to wipe away a little bit of this like overlapping just so I don't get confused. Tattoo where I'm not supposed to. Just because the skin back here is a little tough, which actually I kind of prefer because that means that the skin is like tight. Feels a little more sturdy when the needle's in there, so that's nice. So we got the lines in here. Now we're gonna start doing some of the shading. My reference is pretty dark, and there are definitely a lot of spots with black, which I think I'm gonna keep. I like to look at my surroundings. So this is very dark, you know? So I don't know how dark I'm gonna make the stuff that hits this. Like you see, this is light, so I made this a little darker and faded it to light. And I think it just looks better with this. But if you want to set stuff in the background, it is good to shade it. Kind of sets it in the background. So I think what I'm going to do is kind of choose my shades with my 3RL first, and then I'll set it back at the end with the mag. So I'm just going to work it in here, and I'll probably go through the whole piece shading with the 3RL. And then I'm going to take a step back and look at our new tattoo up against our old tattoo, and I'm just going to use the mag to, you know, flick off the old tattoo and set things back. And even you can see in here where I'm working, as I make this edge darker, makes the wall look further back behind this pillar. So we're going to be messing with that stuff throughout the tattoo. So just first I'm gonna get my, kind of just my base tones in with the new structure. And then I'll look at it at the end, and I'll use like a big mag to kind of push things forward and pull things back. So we are done for today. I mean, at this point, we had done 2 sessions. We had both the side pieces. We created the V. I talked about it earlier. And now, the piece today and everything moving forward, this is when the sleeve, the leg sleeve, really starts to come together. So it's so satisfying at this point in the process. I'm really excited to show you guys what we got accomplished today. It brings the entire backside of the leg together. It looks nice and straight when he stands. We got the fire in there. It's dark. You see the separation. I just could not be happier with this piece, and from the back it looks sick. With these castles, these symmetrical ones, there's always kind of a final check that I'll do. We just accomplished it. It looks great, but I'm checking the reference and both sides, and I kind of go through each window, each item, to make sure it's the same. All right, this pillar's dark, that pillar's dark. This is light, that's light. You know, staring at it all day, it's really good to just step away from the piece. You know, I walk in the back, chill for 5 minutes, I come back to it, give it a second look, make sure I hit everything. So we're looking good, everything is symmetrical, and it's time to do pictures and videos.